Hi, everyone. James Cape. I think a lot of you guys know me. I'm the current president of the Intel Alumni Network, and I am very, very excited that we have Gina Riley back again for the third installment in the series of career development and transition. And this specific topic is going to be about your job search strategy. Now, one little big piece of housekeeping, please, guys. Can you please make it easy on me and put your questions in the queue window? You can see that at the bottom of the channel bar in Zoom. If you go across, it's between share and closed captioning. And if you want to chat with your friends and do the whole, give your friends a hard time, do it in chat. Make it easy on me, okay? And with that, Gina, I'm going to go off camera, and it is all you.
Excellent. Thank you for that. All right. Welcome, everyone. And we definitely love seeing where you're dialing in from. It also gives us an indication about who we're reaching through LinkedIn and through our email channels. So please keep doing that. It makes it lively, it makes it fun, and it helps us connect with each other, at least in this way. So today is the third session for the Path to Next series. We're going to be discussing job search strategy using Steve Dalton's The 2-Hour Job Search. I will put a caveat in here that I do not get any residuals. I do not get paid by Steve Dalton to talk about his book. I buy 30 at a time and give them to my private coaching clients, along with another book that I'll be talking about at the end of this, which will be the precursor to our next session. So I'll leave that as a teaser, so you'll stay till the end. So we'll be talking about the 2-Hour Job Search. This is not a training session. This is an information session. It is very dense, full of actual quotes from Steve Dalton's book and from an interview that I conducted with him about 2 years ago, where I asked him very probing questions about how mature professionals use the 2-Hour Job Search for their benefit, because the book was originally written over a decade ago with the MBA students in mind that he was advising at Duke University. So with that, I'm going to just do a quick credibility slide on myself. So if you haven't tuned in before, why would you listen to Gina Riley? I am an Intel alum. I worked at Intel in the 90s for about a decade. I worked in recruitment. I got a master's degree in whole systems design, where I applied that as an HR business partner. I ran the Oregon intern program for over a year, hiring 400 interns in just 1 year. And then I took a career break. So I can really relate to people who have made intentional career breaks. I was raising my kids while my husband, Sean Riley, also was working at Intel, and it was really tough for both of us to do it all. So I did that. And then I re-entered the workforce, working for Talents Group, Executive Search and Consulting. That is led by Sherry Kitsowen, who is the CEO. I'm still affiliated with that organization, and I primarily am on deck doing interview skills training in our corporate client environments, helping upskill them on how to craft effective questions. So I reverse engineer that for my Career Velocity program, which I created. It's a 9-step model where I help people one-on-one go through preparing their unique value proposition through interview prep, resume development, all of that stuff, and then job search strategy, which is why you are here today. I write for Forbes. I do a lot of speaking. I'm a UMAP certified coach, and I was a LinkedIn top voice in 2024. Maybe they'll let me keep that. I don't know, that lovely title. I'm doing a quick highlights reel on the first couple of sessions that we've already had, and the reason why I'm doing this is because all of these sessions are foundational and intentionally rolling out in a certain order. So the first one was Career Transition Strategy 101. You can go back through the Intel Alumni Network website and you can go and re-watch those or watch them for the first time if you haven't seen it. Start with the foundation, because everything is built upon a strong foundation. Really, it's about developing your unique value proposition and developing your story. So I'm relating that directly to my 9-step model so you can see what I mean by foundational and intentional. The second session was on modern resume development. We had 3 of the top career resume writing coaches and career coaches on a panel discussion. It was very lively. There was tons of questions in the chat. Sarah Johnston, Adrienne Tom, Ben Wyant. It was fantastic. So I encourage you to go back and watch that. Today we're doing job search strategy, which is really after you have prepared your unique value proposition, after you've gotten ready to interview. You need a strategic and deliberate way of targeting companies and targeting people. And then just as a part of my career velocity model, what I have set out in the future, maybe Q4, is we will talk about thought leadership, because the best way to really ensure that you are findable in the future by recruiters and to be thought of by your network for opportunities is to make sure you're seen and heard rather than buried under layers of your accomplishments. So with that, we're going to talk about job search strategies, and the way that I help my clients is using the 2-hour job search. And you can find this on Amazon. You could get a used copy. I actually recommend getting the actual book. And my copy, the one I use regularly, is completely dog-eared because I've read it that many times. I liken it to a car manual. If my car broke down and I had to go and dissect my car manual to make it go, it would be painful. And I kind of feel the same way about job search strategy. But if you don't go and get the nuts and bolts of how to make your job search strategy run, then you may struggle with the spray and pray, spray out your resume and your application again and again and not hear back. So if you want a better method, this is the one. So this is a method to lay your groundwork. It is not 2 hours to actually land a job. It's going to help you maximize your time and focus, narrow your search, and give you success metrics along the way. And as Steve says, it reduces decision anxiety about how you spend your time. So when you spray and pray, it feels like you're doing something. Family and friends are like, hey, how's that job search going? And you're like, oh yeah, I applied to 50 jobs this week. Well, oftentimes we're not hearing back because there's so many applicants today. And so this is going to give you a better method. Just a quick highlights reel on who Steve is. He worked at Duke University for about 17 to 20 years. He recently left to launch his own consulting business, and he was advising MBA students on career transitions. And over the years, he applied his methodologies to a point where he was able to create a book, which I have found very inspiring for my clients. And if you are a process-oriented person who understands that recipes and formulas get you where you need to go, you will like this. It's a dense read, like what I was saying. Now, this is a clip on this slide of an article that I wrote where I interviewed Steve. We spent 4 hours together, and I was dissecting how do I bring this content to my community, mature job seekers, to use this. One quote that he gave me from the article is, what inspired me to write the first edition was the realization that there was no recipe in the marketplace for networking for the purpose of getting interviews. I thought this was unconscionable, so I set out to create the first recipe. So if you feel like you've been struggling to figure out what is the job search strategy, it's not that easy to find. You hear a lot of tips. Okay. So why is job search strategy so hard? It's because of technology, really. For, the past decade or so plus, we have been able to apply to anything that we want that we see visible in the marketplace. And the challenge is recruiters do not have time to read all of these. It's not possible. Are they skimming them? Yes. So I'm going to point twice in this presentation to a Ladders study done in 2018, where they did eye tracking technology, watching where recruiters read resumes and how quickly they did that. And the first skim is generally in that 7, 8, 9 seconds. So that means the resume is really an attention grabber to make people want to read it twice. But the turnkey is not your resume. The turnkey, as you will see, and James mentioned earlier, is networking and getting conversations going so you can hand your resume over. So one study showed that for every job posting filled by a job applicant, that 12 were filled by internal referrals. So Steve in this book is going to give you tons of studies, tons of the psychology behind why you want to use a method like this, because relying on an ATS is like hoping to win the lottery. So I don't want you to be obsessing over your resume. You need a good resume to apply online, but most importantly, to hand it to people in your network, like James, like Howard, et cetera, and your peers and your counterparts. So you need to get people to know, like, and trust you and to help you with this process. The problem isn't getting your resume right, it's getting your resume seen. You need to get seen, and it's very difficult to get seen and picked up when you're in a sea of hundreds of applicants. So even with the perfect resume, you need to get someone to really lock into you, and getting those referrals is very key. So with the 2-hour job search, there are three chunks of content in the book: prioritizing, contacting, and convincing. Now, what you will see, and if you want to watch this video back later, I am giving you reference pages for everything I'm doing. I've read it so many times, and I've converted all of this into 4 videos for my private clients that I've condensed that today here for you. And this is going to give you a direct line into where the content lies in the book. So prioritizing is spending approximately 70 minutes creating a target list, approximately 50 minutes with the contacting, and 30 with convincing people. So this is kind of that job search breakdown. So how do we uncover advertised roles? More experienced professionals don't get the straight line between applying to a role online and getting an interview. Less experienced people often do. Why is that? There's so many more job openings for people who are at the entry levels. And there's less, as I say, at the top of the triangle. So it's more challenging just to apply and get picked up. Is it possible? Absolutely. I've done executive search for Talents Group, and we look at every single application, regardless of people are qualified or not. So executive level thinking is conducting speculative networking with organizations and professionals to get insights and uncover where they can add the most value. You have to have conversations in order to find out what problems companies and organizations are having, so that you can figure out how your sharp tool from your Swiss Army knife toolkit can be applicable and helpful. All right, so your goal with the 2-hour job search is to get referrals, and it is the most efficient way to get seen and heard in the modern job search. So another thing that Steve says is, with all the readily available information and technology, it's easier for job seekers to build relationships and identify targets. So this process has no barriers to entry. It can be done whether or not you have, tons of experience or no experience. College students use this method, as well as super senior professionals. So part 1 is prioritizing. And again, this is Gina Riley's Cliff Notes of the 2-hour job search. It is not a substitute for the book. You won't be able to just turnkey and do it all. You're going to get the entire framework here. And to really put the rubber on the road, you'll need to read the book. So prioritizing is making a list of target companies, 40 of them, figuring out if you have contacts or advocacy within those companies where you can get referrals and introductions, your motivation for the job or the company, and then whether or not you see job postings. So at the senior levels, you may not see a lot of senior level job postings. However, you might see a lot of hiring activity, which you could sniff out might mean there is churn, there's growth, something is happening. So with the prioritizing, one thing that Steve points out, which I find fascinating, like a complete mindset shift, is for those of us that have worked at an Intel or a Google or a Nike, these big global companies, those are what I call the sexy brands. Those are the ones people immediately think of. Oh, I really like to work there. However, most of the employment opportunities are in smaller companies with 2 to 99 employees. So don't discount all those other companies in the marketplace where you might be able to add value. And honestly, if you've been at Intel for a really long time, maybe it's a breath of fresh air to look at something that's completely different. So with prioritizing, what you're going to be doing is helping yourself set up success metrics over the effort that it takes to apply, and the spray and pray method. Measuring your time and your effort doesn't correlate strongly with success, according to Steve. So James, I don't know if we have questions yet, but I'm just going to take a quick breath and see if there's anything that you
Yeah,
see right now?
yeah, Jay, I think, kind of going back, if you could re-review, kind of the list again,
Oh, I
start.
will. I'm going in detail.
Okay.
That's where I'm turning the corner.
Yeah, so that, a question, an attendee wanted to hear the summary again, but, I'll leave it to you to kind of, as you go through the slide deck,
Oh, yeah.
figure out where to re talk to the same
The lamp
content.
list.
Yeah,
I'm on
I
it.
think it's the lamplet. There you go.
I've got your back. I've got your back.
Gina,
Okay. So, yes.
It's Howard. One other quick question here. You used the acronym ATS, but
Ooh.
the slide didn't define it. Would you clarify that for our audience?
Oh, good catch, Howard. Applicant tracking system. So that is, as we apply through an Indeed or directly into a company website, which I highly recommend company websites over those big job boards. And I talk about that in session 1 a little bit. That's where our resume goes to get sorted, to get viewed, to get passed on to hiring managers, to get scheduled for interviews. So that is the applicant tracking system. Thanks for that. So I'm going to go into a little more depth about the LAMP list. So you can use databases to find the majority of the businesses that you are searching for. LinkedIn is great. Google is great. Go and just search the internet. Look beyond obvious choices so that you can get some inspiration. Company websites, when you go onto LinkedIn, you can see other companies that are similar, read articles, read the news, look at conference agendas and see where some of the speakers work. There's all kinds of creative ways to figure out how to create your list. So making your LAMP list, you will be putting on that list dream employers, alumni and affinity. I'm going to go into all the detail of this, those who are hiring, and then trending employers. You can see page 32 in the book on more on this. So briefly, I want to share with you some of the objections that you might even have in your mind, like, why do I want to create a target list? Why am I doing this? I need to just apply. I need to get a job. This is what Steve says. And I believe this is in my article and not in the book. The first is, as we discussed earlier, why do I need to come up with a list of 40 employers if I already know the 5 or 10 that I want to work for? Everything I talk about in my book is grounded in data, but this one is anecdotal, based on thousands of iterations and working with job seekers. Those who start with fewer than 40 simply aren't successful. They don't realize the employers are the commodity, not you, of which there's only one in the entire world. Furthermore, a shortcut taken this early in the process means inevitably other shortcuts will be taken later in the process. You may just resort to spray and pray. So the second pushback that Dalton gets is, how could this method be a one-size-fits-all? If I'm 25 years into my career, just because a graduate uses this doesn't negate this process. That's what I want you to really take away from this quote. And the third pushback is deprioritizing online job postings, as in, I just want to start networking and I need to apply to this job because it might go away. And so Steve is really encouraging you to go get this list so that you can focus your energy on the top 5 and then keep iterating as you go. So what are dream employers? These are intuitive. These are the ones that you already are like, oh, I totally want to work at that company. So I'm working with a couple of directors that all of them work at Google. They've hired me because they want to actually make a move somewhere else. And so they're being really strategic and planful about it. And so they're coming up with these target companies that sound really fun and are smaller than the Google. And so you already know probably what a couple of those companies are. Those are the first ones that you're going to populate onto your list. This is a fast data dump, 60 seconds. Then you're going to work on alumni. Alumni and affinity organizations are people the companies that employ people like you. You're going to look at people who have shared backgrounds. You're going to look at similar companies to an Intel. Where are people working that are like you? It does not mean alumni from your college necessarily. The alumni could mean the types of alumni that have worked at an Intel and gone elsewhere. The third thing is, which companies are actually doing hiring. So if you're knocking down the door of a company that's kind of on lockdown, that's going to be more challenging. It doesn't mean there's not jobs there. It means you have to network gain trust from people internally, and then they need to really buy into what you have to offer in order to even create a role for you. So which companies have movement and excitement and things are happening? And then we're going to look at trending, the less obvious employers, which are really, really good for career switchers and people seeking smaller employers. So you're going to look at the news, you're going to look on Google, you're going to look at who's posting things on LinkedIn, which companies, and you're going to be building your list of 40 with this framework right here. So you want to use Google to search for companies. You want to resist the urge to do research on the companies. You are going to be making your list in only 40 minutes or so. It's going to be very quick. You're just populating it so you have something to go off of. The soonest that you start doing research on a company and wondering if it should be on the list, you're not doing the 2-hour job search. So use your online search engines, Indeed, LinkedIn, Google. Don't worry about whether or not a job has been posted for a long period of time. Just make your list. All right. The second part of the LAMP list process is contacting. Or the second part of the 2-hour job search is contacting people, and you're going to be finding boosters. I also call them advocates, people that can get you in front of hiring managers, decision makers. That is what the goal is. Obligates, I'll explain what these kinds of people are, and curmudgeons. So in the contact part of the 2-hour job search, you're going to be finding people that can help you get in front of others. So this is going to involve networking. And so what does Steve say about networking, and why are we hesitant to do this? What people misunderstand is networking feels like a very indirect process, but it's the most direct route I've identified in terms of return on effort. Networking is the least bad alternative when it comes to the best use of each minute of your time. An hour spent networking is not going to feel immediately productive. It's an investment that improves your odds over time. In a way, the same amount of time spent reacting to jobs simply is not. People who are resistant to networking because they've never formally been trained to network. What they've been taught is a list of uncomfortable, inauthentic, and outdated tips that work only for a fraction of people. Steve Dalton says this quote as an introvert. He talks about this in the book. When he was in college, and by the time he started working on a master's degree, things had shifted in the economy, and it went from, as he describes, old people coming to campus and trying to recruit them to him trying to figure out how he can beat down the door and network to get a job. And it was a complete shock to him. So I encourage you to read his story. In his estimation, only 10 to 20% of the population are boosters. We're talking about boosters. We're talking about obligates and curmudgeons. So therefore, to find boosters, people that will advocate for you, you have to kiss a lot of frogs to find princes. But again, much more effective than spray and pray. So I get a lot of objections about the word alumni. And so I included this quote in here from Steve. And alumni does not have to mean from your college. Alumni could be people that you're affiliated with in organizations that you've been in throughout your whole life. It could be a crew from your fraternity or sorority. It could be a church. It could be a golf club. It could be some organization that you've been a part of. It could be the past employers that you've been a part of. So don't get wrapped up when you read the book in alumni because you need to open it up. You're going to have conversations with people, and alumni is one way to create that list. Now, one thing that I mentioned in the first session, I'm pretty sure, is a book called Friend of a Friend by Dr. David Burkus. And the science that he talks about, the studies are the most likely person to take your call is someone who already knows you, regardless of how long it's been since you've talked to them. So that is called a loose tie. There is science there. So before you start just doing cold outreach, start to look at who you know from your entire past. Go make a list of those organizations, affiliations, and start populating the people that you knew. And those are the first people that would love to hear from you when you reach out and say Happy New Year. So boosters are a sympathetic contact. These are people, whether they know you or not, who are going to take a call or try to help you. Obligates feel obligated to help. They cancel appointments, they drag out the process. These are the people that go, yeah, I'll help you. And then they go cold, they ghost on you. And then curmudgeons are people that do not respond. And the way that Steve kind of talks about it is you kind of send a thank you out into the universe that they didn't respond, because now you know not to spend your time with them. Keep moving. How do you build advocacy? If you're a career changer, you need to build advocacy. You have to have a job title somewhere on your resume that relates. You might get a look if you're doing the spray and pray. Otherwise, you have to network, especially as you get more experienced and the job titles become, less formal. We know that these job titles are kind of a moving target. They're loosey-goosey. So you must be considering that networking is your top strategy once you make your LAMP list. So some of the tips for leadership level job seekers, this is what I asked Steve about. By the time a job posting goes live, you're already late to the game. Oftentimes an internal or referred candidate has already been identified. So chasing the postings is a terrible way to go through your job search. What I will pause and say is I was online most of yesterday for National Career Coaches Day. It was a big event where we had a lot of job seekers pop on, and we shared some content, and all of the people on the panels that I was a part of were saying you need to be applying in the first 2 days so that you're at the top of the stack, so that you get that first look. Because what we're seeing is companies will get hundreds of applications, close the job down, go through those applications, then reopen so that they can consider more people and create a high quality pool. So you want to kind of get in on the, you want to front load. So find 1 to 3 sectors of companies and proactively network to get informationals with smart people in those spaces before they have a need. This is why you're networking. So over time, you'll get better at having these conversations. I'm going to give you a couple of frameworks later on, well, how do I have these cold conversations? What do I say in the informationals? I've got your back. I have a couple of frameworks for you to use. So if you're constantly changing job postings, you really need to be thinking about shifting your energy to networking so you can get information that makes you smarter faster. So the most predictably good informational meeting you can do is with a person doing the job or working in the area you want to be in someday. So this is what you want to do, is try to target people that have that real information that will help you, and you want to try to get 20 to 30 minutes of their time to ask questions. James, I'm going to pause, and before I shift into this, a couple of the exercises in part 2 of the 2-hour job search. Any questions?
Well, I am surprised. Intel people are usually really question oriented. So guys, please put something in the Q&A window, and those who are super nerdy about networking, besides what Gina's recommended, check out the book by Neil Ferguson called The Square and the Tower, and that will give you actually the scientific kind of breakdown of how important networking is, as Gina is talking about.
The Square and the Tower?
The Square and the Tower by author Neil Ferguson.
Okay,
And
I just put the title in the chat. Thank you.
yeah, it is really, if you're interested in the theory of how this works, right? This is the real deal. Spend your
That
time
one.
networking. Don't spend your time posting on job boards.
Absolutely. It has, job boards have its place, and I would say spending less than 20% of your time on job boards is the way to go. And I would kind of suspect that with all the folks online right now, you may be taking notes. So I don't feel offended that there's not questions, because this is really dense. I told you it's kind of like a car manual. So you're getting the highlights real.
Hey, Gina,
Yes.
one quick comment I wanted to make, going back to your one of your graphics that said, everybody knows the big companies, but most of the opportunities are in the smaller companies. I don't know if everyone is aware, but if you have a library card, your local library has a tremendous amount of resources in terms of, and typically under the e-resources tag in their library site, that gives you access, if you're a library card holder, to LexisNexis and a bunch of other online resources. And you can actually go out and identify companies by geographic area, by industries, etc., by revenue. And if you don't know all the smaller and mid-sized companies in your area, these are tremendous resources to help you identify those. So if you don't have a library card, get one. If you have it, go visit your library site and take a look at the e-resources that are available to you, because LexisNexis and others are pretty expensive if you have a personal subscription, but your public library will give you access to these things online.
Ah, that is a great share. I just put in the chat, use your library. I've got a couple things in the Q&A.
Yeah,
Gina,
they're beginning to come in now.
hi
Those-
everyone. Thank you for waking up. Gina has a slide early that listed prioritize, contact, and a third word. She stated the purpose of each step, and that's what I missed. Brett, I will be getting to the third one after this, and that, yeah. So hang with us. And then, does reaching out to people in the LinkedIn third tier connection help in getting a job? Ooh, okay. So you will need to do cold outreach to all manner of people, whether throughout LinkedIn or through your network, etc. That's a tough question to answer specifically. What you're trying to do is get first, second, and third degree people in your network to become a first degree connection so that you can open up a conversation on LinkedIn, because you get very few characters to make that first connection request so that you can hold an informational conversation. So does it mean that that third degree connection is going to help you get a job? I don't know. Will they help give you information that advances your career search strategy? Quite possibly. That's what you're trying to do. So I don't know if I answer that for you appropriately. And then how to effectively utilize LinkedIn for networking. How do you feel about using looking for work banner? Okay, so we will do more sessions on networking itself. That's one of my favorite topics. I am not a hater of the open to work banner. You're going to hear all kinds of people talk about it one way or the other. But if you're looking for a job, put it on for a week or two, take it off for a week or two, try it, because if you're looking for a job, darn it, I think it's fine to let people know. And also in your work history summary, if you were someone who was subject to the layoffs, you could say recently part of a X% reduction in workforce and looking for my next best opportunity. So it's okay to explain, why you've left. And then how do I feel? All right. I hear conflicting information. Okay, hopefully that answers that for you. It depends on who you listen to. And again, I'm not a hater of the green banner. All right.
Gina? Howard again, I'm sorry.
No, do it.
One other quick suggestion with regard to second and third level connections. If you have second level and third level connections, certainly second level connections, that means you have a first level connection that is a first level connection with that second level person.
Mhm.
Consistent with everything else Gina has said about the importance of personal relationships, if you have a second level connection or a first level connection that's tied to a second level of second level connection who either is at a company of interest or you feel has comparable experience that you like to explore, then ask for the introduction from your first level connection. And likewise, if you connect with that second level person, that gives you a first level connection to your third level. So you can utilize these levels of indirection, but it's always best, rather than cold call, to try and get that warm introduction from somebody who already knows you and can vouch for you.
That is such a great suggestion. And I'm going to put a twist on it. So as we all connect with each other on LinkedIn, and so today, if you connect with me. I like personalized connection requests. Hey, I saw you on the session 3. That way I know. Otherwise, I am looking at every profile and I go down, I go, former Intel, I get it. Because otherwise we get a lot of spammy invites, and we want a healthy network, not one full of like spammy things going on. So if you reach out to me and you see that I'm connected to somebody, I've got over 5,000 actual connections beyond followers. So I may not know that one person in the 5,000, but I could just depending on what you're asking for, I could open up a conversation with that connection and say, hey, you know, Susie would really like to meet you, John, and we're connected. So I'm just making an introduction and then back out. So that could be an easy way to do it. For the person that you're asking for that favor, you need to give some juice behind it. You need to give some information, not just, you know, hey, can you connect me to John because I'm trying to get a job, right? So there's nuances. There's nuances. All right, we're going to keep going on part 2 on contacting people. Steve breaks it down into how much time you should be spending doing these things. I have not dissected this down to the minutia because this is an overview. So you need to look at the book for all the details. But naturalizing is finding 2 starter contacts, people who are functionally relevant to you. So as an HR person, I might be looking for someone in, you know, anything related to HR for me. Fellow alumni or affinity group member. So people that, you know, may be affiliated through other past experiences and companies. 1 to 2 levels above where you would start. So if you're kind of mid-range in the hierarchy, you're not approaching the CEO per se. Whether or not someone's been internally promoted, you could have a really interesting conversation with, like, tell me more about like your career path at this company. And Steve also talks about whether or not they have a unique name they might be easy to get to and figure out their email address. So where do you find people? LinkedIn groups. You can look at even commentary and comments and find interesting people there. Direct email, LinkedIn invitations to connect using the other social channels. And then, like Howard was saying, the second degree connections, trying to get to other people. So this is how we're trying to find people. Steve goes into detail about something he calls, his trademarked 6-point email. So if you're uncomfortable doing these cold reach outs, he is too, and he gives you exact language that you could swipe and modify. Now, I have a caveat, Gina Riley's caveat here, which is it's pretty tight, these 6-point emails. They're like 75 words or less. And I don't subscribe to being in hamstrings like that, or put in a box. If you have a little more to say with a little more pizzazz, then go ahead and do it. I have a gentleman that I worked with this year who had a contact at a very desirable company and was going to be a very, very competitive senior level job. And he noticed that the hiring manager also had experience working in Japan, because he looked at his LinkedIn profile and did some homework. So he sent that man a message and said, hey, you know, we have some things in common. I bet you had some of these interesting cultural challenges when you were navigating being a leader in Japan. And we also have these other things in common. And he ended up getting the conversation, and he beat an internal candidate for that job. He's moving to Florida now, and he's going to be starting it. So if you add a little human into these, not be robotic, you know, sometimes it can really invite a great conversation. Also, another thing that, if someone could help remind me, because I meant to queue it up, I created an article for LinkedIn where I crowdsourced. I have at least 7 other opinions on how to create an effective cover letter, which dovetails very nicely with the 6-point email concept about how do you create an effective cover letter. And are cover letters dead? No, most of my peers that I respect say 20 to 25% of the time you may have someone actually reading that. And so you want to up your game and be more likely to get selected to be a candidate if you go ahead and, you know, go the extra mile. So we also talk about in part 2 tracking. He has something called the 3B7 routine for your top 5 target employers. You're creating a list of 40. You are prioritizing the order that you're going to be tackling each one and figuring out those contacts. And then you're using this formula. The 3 means that you're setting a reminder 3 days after you send your first contact, your query. And if you haven't heard back, you're actually going to send something to the second person that you found on your list. And by the 7th day, the first person that you reached out to, you're going to do one more attempt. Hey, my email might have gotten buried, or, you know, something like that, to try to trigger the conversation. Once you've tried twice, Steve is advocating that you move on. Consider them a curmudgeon. And then you're moving on to more people on the list until you basically tap out, or you have new information that that another company is going to pop into your top 5 and you're going to spend your time there. I really like that formula because it gives you something to actually, these are the success metrics that you can be marching to. Okay, so I'm back to, I think it was Brett's question on what was the third thing, and that is convincing. I love this part. This is about informational conversations. And I, this week, had a conversation with one of my clients. She is aiming for a CEO role in the nonprofit sector. And she's like, I just feel really tapped out on what I'm talking about with people. Like, once I get the conversation, what am I asking? We're going to go through that. We pulled out all my notes from the 2-hour job search and the other notes that I have on informational. So convincing is researching companies and people, preparing for the conversation, having discussions, and the follow-up. So these 4 things. Again, this is being recorded. You can watch this whole video back on the IAN website. So with convincing, you're going to do external research and you're going to prepare for the top big 4 questions that Steve mentions in his book. Tell me about yourself. And in my world, tell me about yourself is a compilation of a quick highlights reel of your career, only things that are really relevant that will inspire excitement in the person listening to you. You need to create your unique value proposition in order to answer, tell me about yourself. That's the whole bottom layer of my coaching model in that triangle and all the building blocks that help inform the UVP. The second is, why do you want to work for our organization? Why this role? And why this industry or sector? So these are the things that you're preparing to be able to answer, but these aren't the things that you have queued up to ask questions about. So Steve says more experienced professionals with 25 years of experience and maybe at the C level know exactly how challenging a job search can be, but that fear of the unknown is replaced by large amounts of embarrassment and shame and anxiety over not already knowing how to confidently network one's way through a job transition. For decades, their work has spoken for itself, making networking with strangers unnecessary. But suddenly that neglected skill is being called to the forefront. That incredibly it's uncomfortable for those who've enjoyed decades of success doing their jobs. I want everyone who feels shame and uncertainty about networking for interviews not to feel bad. They've simply never been formally trained. It's like being bad. You're not good at playing the violin when you've never been given a violin or trained to play it. So in short, this quote was me asking Steve about how senior leaders and people who are mature get over themselves. You will need to get over yourself to do networking and have conversations with strangers, which I understand. I'm primarily working with Gen Xers and boomers, and it's confronting when you have to suddenly start networking and you feel like you don't have a network. So again, with part 3, with the convincing, you will need to get really good at small talk, which only lasts for a fraction of the time in a short 20 to 30 minute informational conversation. And then you're going to have Q&A prepared. You're going to have the Q's prepared. Steve uses a formula or framework called TIARA, T-I-A-R-A. What are the trends in your organization or the industry? What insights do you have for me? What advice do you have? What resources do you recommend? Podcasts, books, other people to talk to, right? And then assignments. I personally don't love the assignments part of TIARA for mature professionals. I see this more as something that he designed for his MBA students. Like, what would you have me go do now? That's the assignment. I don't really use that or subscribe to that. Now, my pro tip is take in your back pocket a SWOT. What are the strengths of your organization? What are the weaknesses? I never actually use the word weakness because that can come off as people may not like that word, but like what are you struggling with? What opportunities is your company really aiming to, seize? And then what is threatening your success? Here's the juice, people. Opportunities is where they're trying to grow or take over market share or improve sales, whatever the thing is. And then the threats is where they have a problem or a gap in getting there. And this is when you are networking, you're trying to figure out where your sharp tool, your toolkit might be able to help people. Ah, that reminds me of the time that I did this. Okay. And then moving into next steps. If a referral is offered, commit to a follow-up. And my pro tip is ask them, is there anyone else that you would recommend that I talk to? And ask them for a warm introduction so that you don't have to do a cold outreach with someone that you don't know. Hey, Bob said that I should reach out to you. Try to get the warm intro. Okay, the most predictably good informational meeting you can do with a person doing the job or working in the area you want now or one day, you can really learn and gain insights from the people you are more likely to build an advocate from that 30-minute investment of time. So Steve's advice is really trying to talk to people who may be peer level or maybe next level above. That's kind of a sweet spot. I wouldn't discount people who are reporting into those people because you may gain some insights that would give you different perspective though. All right, and then the harvest cycle, as he calls it. It's a systematic way of continually reaching out to people. He's calling it the easiest step. When I interviewed him, I'm not sure if he uses this metaphor or analogy, but he calls this process like setting up a lobster trap and continually checking on it. So you're in your networking process, setting out your traps, and then you have to go back and check if you got a lobster. So it is on you to stay top of mind with your network and do this process. So sending them a thank you email to every person that you speak to. Email is totally fine, although I interviewed a man, Rich Lehman, who held 99 conversations during an economic downturn to try to get a job at Nike, which he finally did land after 18 months of 99 conversations. And he actually did a handwritten note to every single person, but he was also able to meet with them all in person. That was pre-pandemic, and he actually did it on the grounds of Nike in the coffee shop. Provide updates if they referred you to someone. Thank you so much for introducing me to Bob. This is what I learned. And then set a once a month reminder so that you can kind of keep that advocate spark alive. So why do we do this? Because you need to remind people that you're still job seeking. You know, when you were busy doing your job, that you weren't just sitting around thinking about all the people that you knew who were looking for a job. It's some lucky cosmic thing that may have happened if you thought of someone because you had a hole or a gap. In the meantime, you need to be the one that owns your career, as we've heard, and be the one to remind people, hey, I'm still on the market. I'm still looking. Here's what I'm learning. Make sure that you renew your interest if it's gone a little bit stale. And anything that you're asking for, try not to make it something where they really have to act on it. So I like the idea of sending an email and saying, hey, I'm just letting you know I'm still looking. You don't need to respond, but I wanted to make sure that I remain on your radar while I'm in the market. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you at this time. So it's easy to do without making someone feel like they're obligated. That's the main thing. So keep reminding people that you're in the network. Being top of mind is your responsibility. And Steve's method with the 2-hour job search, he says you will be appropriately busy working on your job search strategy versus that soul-sucking spray and pray, which I don't say don't apply online, but apply in the first couple days and make sure that that application is awesome and that you have a cover letter. So if it's worth it, you'll spend the time on those things and apply through company websites versus the big job boards. So you want a lot of eyes and ears on you and your process. And so this is a wrap up of the 2-hour job search highlights reel, Gina Riley's Cliff Notes of how to do your job search strategy. I'm going to go over to the Q&A.
Yes, you have another one. What is the role of headhunters for mid-level professionals, 20 plus years of experience?
Okay.
They're good, bad, and different. What your suggestions?
Oh my goodness. I have a lot to say about this. In fact, James, this would be a whole nother session that I have proposed. I'll bring in Sherry Kitsowen, who's the head of talents group, to do, at least for a panel discussion. So there are 3 general well-known recruitment models, and what you need to understand is how they operate. And I actually wrote a Forbes article about these recruitment models. I should have queued all this stuff up. So if you go to Forbes and look for me, there's an article on this. Here's the scoop. You've got internal recruiters. They are hired by the company to work on behalf of the company to search the market and manage those requisitions internally with hiring managers. Who do they work for? The company. Then you have a contingent model. Contingent search might be contingent executive search. Contingent recruiters work again for the company that is sending them a contract. And so they canvass the market and they quickly try to populate a pipeline so that that company can hopefully make a decision on the candidate that they put in front of them. This can be dicey if you are talking with multiple contingent companies competing for the same win for that one candidate in a specific company. You can kind of get caught in the crosshairs of that a little bit. So you have to pay attention to where your resume is going to, understand what the relationship that recruiter has with the company, et cetera. And then the third model is executive search. Those people get a contract that is exclusive and they own the entire process, soup to nuts. They write the requisition in conjunction with the company needs. They facilitate the process. They go to market. They do all the vetting, and then they manage that whole internal interview process in conjunction with the client. That's the role that I've done: internal recruitment for Intel, and then executive search. So when someone may use the phrase, "Oh, you should be working with a recruiter," you need to remember where the bread and butter comes from for the recruiter. They work for the people who pay them. So I have yet to see a single model where you, the candidate, pay someone to find you a job. I would highly caution you against that. I have heard of people who've come to me for coaching and they're like, yeah, I spent $6,000 on a recruiter to find me a job and I ended up with nothing. So think long and hard about where you put your time, your energy, and your resources. And you need to understand what those recruiters' motivations are. So as soon as you're not the right candidate for that client, they no longer need to be speaking with you. So it's not about them ghosting you. It's about them trying to efficiently get their job done to serve the people that are paying them. So I don't know if that totally helps with that question. James, do you think there's a nuance I missed?
No, I think that's quite good. But there is a question here, right? Kind of circling back on the as you follow up and get interviews or you're applying, is it important to also send along with the resume and a link to your LinkedIn page a cover letter from your experience? Is it worth the time? And I think the second question is, if you do get the interview, what does the follow-up specifically look at? Is it a letter, or is it a, simple, hey, thank you very much, so-and-so, that was great
Yeah.
in talking to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm of the mind that if you're bothering to apply to a job, that you go ahead and do the extra mile on the cover letter. And I'm going to try to quickly grab from LinkedIn the article that I wrote, because I find it's a really nice structure to go off of. And I would caution people not to use Chat GPT and cut and paste that into a cover letter, because you have to remember, if I'm a recruiter and I'm skimming 400 applications and I see the same language again and again, and I know AI wrote it. So you need to make it specific to that company and why you have interest. And I'm going to give you that framework right now in the chat. So I'm going to go grab that. James, do we have any other questions?
Yeah, we have another question here. Are there recommended professional contact management tools to be, helpful in terms of the follow-up cadence with the 40 that you are targeting?
That is a good question. I don't have a snappy answer, to be honest. If there are other people in our network who are on the line right now who have found tools that make it easy, efficient, et cetera, to do that follow-up, would you please put that in the Q&A actually right now, because that way people can see it quickly. And I'm going to go grab this article. So folks, I also wanted to mention our next session. What is it? Michael, you have to help remind me. February, is it 19th? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I think we're doing, Gina, I think we're doing third week of February. And
Third week of Feb. I'll go grab it. So let me
okay.
copy and paste.
Okay,
All right,
yeah.
here's the cover letter article, everyone. I'm putting it in the chat. Our next session is going to be with Kate Dixon, fellow alum. She wrote a book called Pay Up. I buy these two books. I get no money for this. I pay for these. I buy them like 30 to 50 at a time. Pay Up, 2-Hour Job Search.
Right.
She wrote a fabulous salary negotiation book. She's a comp and benefits expert. She is now an elite leadership coach, and I have her lined up to speak to our community next month. So
Excellent.
sign up for that.
Well, hey, we have a couple more questions that just came in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so with regard to resume, should my headline title in my resume match the job rec that I am applying for?
That's a very good question. So here's what you want to think about. You need to think like a recruiter. They pay a ton of money to have LinkedIn Recruiter, and they build these candidate pools with drop-down menus that are pretty sophisticated. And so what are they doing? They're going top to bottom going, okay, I need people with this kind of headline, this kind of job title. Where is that information pulling from? The LinkedIn profile, like from the title and from all the content within. And then they have a whole nother thing, the skills. So you need to have a fully robust skills section, hugely important, and tie it to each of those jobs, giving you a higher likelihood of populating into those pools. So is the headline important? Absolutely. Job title important? Absolutely. Where people get kind of tripped up is if they are, let's say, director level, but they're going for like a VP job at a smaller organization. It feels disingenuous to put VP of XYZ. I totally get that. And I probably wouldn't do it myself because it doesn't feel right. But pay attention to the market value titles. One of my LinkedIn guru friends, Kevin D. Turner, who I'm quoting in the book that I'm publishing in September, he says it's simple math. Feed the algorithm what the recruiters are searching for. So I hope that answers your question kind of at a high level.
Yeah, we have one. Yeah, we're getting close to the top of the hour here. We got one other question. A recruiter contacted one of the attendees for contract work. Are there any, basically bring people in a 1099 type of contract? Is there anything this person should consider when working with a recruiter for contract work?
Working with a recruiter
Right.
for contract work. This is not my area of expertise. That is something I would personally need to go research and ask like my community of recruiters that might have a little bit more expertise lining people up for contract work. So I feel uncomfortable being flip about an answer.
Yeah, my sense of it is I've talked to a lot of people that recruiters there's a fair number of 1099 contract work out there, and maybe we can try to answer that question kind of in the next session.
Yeah,
because companies are being very cautious in hiring right now, and they'd rather not have a fully burdened. Many would prefer not to have a fully burdened head on staff.
Totally. And what I would say too is, if you don't mind going over by a minute, James,
yeah, go ahead, please.
In your LinkedIn profile, if it's been more than 6 months since you've actually held a job, that's about the time that, most professionals say, it's time to maybe have something on the LinkedIn profile to help fill the gaps of what it is that you've been doing. And if you do have contract work, you could put up a shingle and it's very inexpensive to have an LLC and then showcase the kinds of projects that you've been taking on. Here's a word of caution. If you put your CEO or founder, now that's your job title. So make sure that your market value title actually matches what you're going for, and don't overinflate like I'm a CEO of my company. So pay attention to who you're trying to attract to you.
Right. That's really spot on advice there, Gina. I think we've gone through all the questions.
Okay.
Any words for concluding, and then I'll wrap up the session?
Yes, I would say our network will be stronger if we are connecting with each other and at least having first degree connections. That way we can reach each other a little with more ease on LinkedIn. Be respectful of people's time, pay attention to what it is that you're asking for. I would also say that as well. And I am a big fan of always doing a personalized connection request rather than just hitting the connect button, because you're putting all the work on the person receiving it to see if they want to vet you or not. So that's one thing. Please join us for the other sessions. We have been cooking up a whole bunch of topics to be helpful to this community. And yeah, if you're looking for one-on-one career coaching, that's what I do.
Yeah, I'd have to tell everybody, and Gina did not pay me for this plug, but I have worked with a lot of HR people over the years, and I have hired probably, geez, 75 plus people, and I've thankfully only had to fire 5. And I can tell you that from my direct experience, what Gina is suggesting to you is absolutely 125% spot on. And Gina, again, you didn't pay me, did you? No, you didn't.
I
All right.
didn't pay you. I did pay you. So for those of you that are, reaching out to people like Howard, like James, and saying, "Hey, I need help. I need a conversation." We were talking before the session. One of the first questions they should be asking you is, "Tell me what's on your top 5 target list. I wonder if I have anyone I can introduce you to." Oh,
Right.
what magic can happen if you've done that work?
Completely agree, Junior. It's really helpful. And by the way, one of the things I've always done when I've either tried to close consulting contracts or get the next job is the reason people are hiring you is because, or considering hiring, filling a position, is because they've got a problem that they need resources to go solve. So when you go into interviews and things like that, asking, "Hey, look, I researched your company. I know something about it, but what are your top 3 things that you're struggling with right now, and why did you open this rec up in the first place?" Remember, you're having a conversation with this person, right? You're not there begging for a job. Begging is not good, guys. It never worked when I was hiring people, so don't do it. Don't beg.
So informationals are a fact-finding mission. If you
Exactly.
reframe the conversation and you start thinking, I'm trying to uncover information so that I can figure out where my sharp tool might be very helpful. Go back to session 1 if you're not sure what a sharp tool is. You don't want to bring your Swiss Army knife to every conversation. You need to be targeted, and you need to be able to explain quickly how you can help.
Right. Well, great, Gina. Hey, with that, we could go on at least for another hour, I think, having this conversation. But let me thank Gina. This was marvelous for our 3rd session. As Gina mentioned, the 3rd week of February, there will be yet another session. And what we're going to do, at least through the first half, is Gina is going to join us and do, 9 o'clock in the morning, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed discussion about how you develop your career and transition. So look for that. Also, we are going to be doing a 4th in our series around generative AI, more focused on kind of core technology, and that is going to titled Accelerating Intelligence, Gen AI, AGI, and the Revolution Beyond Moore's Law. And for those of you who are new to the Intel Alumni Network, because I have looked at all the attendees and many I do not know, you're new folks, so welcome. Understand that we do programming in 3 areas: technology thought leadership, Intel historical perspectives, and life after Intel. And Gina slots right in with life after Intel, and look for these sessions once a month. And with that, I bid you guys adieu. And can the
James,
panelists please stay on for a bit?
before we drop off here, especially to the new members, but also for existing members, we are an all volunteer organization. And if you're looking for something, a way to get involved and continue to build your network, contact us to volunteer with the Intel Alumni Network. We've got a lot of opportunities for you to utilize skills, develop new skills, and help the organization. So feel free to reach out to James or to me, and just go to info@intelalumni.org at our website, and we would be delighted to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, and by the way, to Howard's point, guys, getting involved in the network, it is a trial run for your comfortable networking.
Yes.
It will help build, not only your network, but your confidence that you have a community that is out here working to support you. right? So that is very important in any job transition and job development. So please get involved if you get a chance. And with that,
Amazing.
please, yeah, Gina, thank you again. This was delightful. I can't believe how many people are still hanging on. But guys, if you, we're just going to be talking a bit about what, how we thought things went. But it was marvelous to have over 111 attendees. That was great.
Amazing. So for those who are still hanging in there, what I would say is, I think I put in the chat on my consulting website, I have a green button that you can hit and you can download a 30-minute webinar with a PDF workbook. It will help you design your career transition plan and strategy. It's not a sales pitch. It's literally a workbook. So that's something that you may want to take advantage of so that you can apply all these things that we're talking about week after week.
Yeah, that's marvelous. Thank you so much. By the way, Gina, to your point, I'm actually going to a networking event tonight. I'm going to be hearing a keynote about with the prof from Stanford about this year's technology trends. And
Oh, that's
so, oh,
awesome.
by the way, there's a very practical thing that by the way, that particularly for us older folks that might be trying to network, please don't bring in, business cards. Nobody does that anymore. LinkedIn has a function where you can share your profile with somebody, right? And this is particularly important when you're talking to people who are younger because none of them have business cards. They do the link, we call it doing the LinkedIn thing with our iPhones, right? Or your phones. And you don't want to exacerbate when you're older, right? Or highlight further that you're an old fart. You don't want to do that, right? You want to look cool and modern, particularly when you're talking to millennials and Zoomers.
Yep. You can Google how to grab your QR code for LinkedIn and then take a screenshot and then heart it because it's hard to find later. And then you can literally just show people your QR code. And instead of having to do the whole personal connection request, say, oh my gosh, we should connect on LinkedIn. Here's my QR code. Do you want to scan it? Boom.
And by the way, one other thing, Gina, I don't know your thoughts on this, but I have kind of a rule of thumb that I won't connect with anybody with fewer than 5 to 10 mutual connections because I want to keep my network pristine and focus on people who really, of the 2,500 people that I have, you got 5,000, I got 2,500. Maybe 20 to 25% of these people I know really well, but nobody that I have accepted requests or tried to network with have less than five
So
to 10
I'm
mutual
gonna
contacts.
spin this on its head. For a job seeker, let's say you're connected to someone like me who has recruitment in my title. I'm not recruiting, so don't reach out and ask me for a job because I'm not recruiting right now, but I'm affiliated with a search firm. If I have 5,000 connections, actual connections, not just followers, you're now 2 more degrees connected to other people in my healthy network. So don't discount some of these kinds of connections. You don't have to know them as long as you're looking at the profile and seeing that they're not just a random person from the other side of the globe. Just make it healthy, make it good. But my larger network is going to help all of you at least reach someone at second degree.
Right. And by the way, that Neil Ferguson book that I mentioned, The Square and the Tower, it'll explain the difference between hubs and nodes. Ooh. And the power, as Neil calls it, the power of weak affiliated bonds. And so I put that out there to intrigue those people who are still
one in the tower. I'm gonna put in my. I'm gonna get
the square and the tower. I mean, literally, Neil Ferguson starts with the mathematics around different types of networks, and I admit that I had to read it twice, and I still didn't fully understand it.
I'm super gonna buy that book because it sounds perfectly aligned with David Burkus's Friend of a Friend, which is loose ties are the thing that helps advance our careers and our lives.
Yeah, remember, hard ties are family ties, typically, right? Loose bonded ties, this is an example, the Intel Alumni Network is an example of a hub with loose bonds, right? We come together for one purpose. We are fellow alums, but we're not family, right? Some of us, we might be friends with some of the people we're talking to personally, but that's the power and the value of the network, right? And make sure it's high quality. Don't spray. I had somebody who went and sent out the LinkedIn blast and got thousands of requests to, join that person's network. That's not very valuable. And there are some scary people out there that might
no,
be
no, no.
trying to get access to you. I can't tell you the number in the last week. I've had 3 requests to join my network from people in countries that I don't really want to be affiliated with.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a good word of caution. And you can also disconnect from people if they ended up
Yeah,
being a
yeah,
shady
you can
character.
kind of you can kind of unlike them,
So
so to speak.
we have so many topics to discuss with this community, and one of which is best practices for LinkedIn. I have a lot of opinions. I also have panelists that I want to bring in down the line to have a panel discussion so you can ask questions of them. What I would recommend today, if you're a job seeker, is to go through your LinkedIn settings and privacy, every single toggle switch. Make sure your photo is turned on. I can't tell you how many people, Howard and James, have reached out to me from Intel and their photo isn't showing. There is science behind your photo showing in friendliness and people's ability. Like, the people don't want to connect with people that are showing up to the door with a bag on their head. I mean, I wouldn't.
Yep.
So make sure your photo is showing to all degrees of connection. You can turn off notifications to your network. So if you are making changes, you're not notifying people that you have a new job or whatever until you're ready. Make sure that you are Googleable. So you need to go in and look at every single thing, because there might be something holding you back from a recruiter finding you because of what you have set up.
Very good. Well, thanks again, Gina.
Well,
A
people
little extra
continue.
addendum beyond the event.
Yeah, we still have people asking questions. This is great.
Oh, we do? What do we got? What do we got?
Well, they want to, Brett wants to make sure that intellalumni.org is a place to go see the recordings. And yes, they are all there. Admittedly, they could be organized a little bit better, but this will come up. This will be posted probably no later than Monday, Tuesday, if Michael
Early
gets a
next
spare
week.
minute to breathe.
Yep.
And it will be posted. It will be posted on the website for your viewing pleasure.
Awesome. And folks, if you've got more questions, it's hard to answer things one off, like through, because we're all just doing our own jobs and whatnot. But if you want to funnel them in, we're keeping a repository of questions. There's so much to answer right now. But there's also a lot of great information out there.
Yeah. Well, so our next, what's the title of the next session again?
It's going to be on salary negotiation,
Oh, that's right,
and
that's
it
right.
is, I am struggling with the date. Hang
February
on.
9th, I believe it said.
I'll look really quick.
She doesn't believe me.
Well, I'm just, it's the 12th at 9:00.
See, I was wrong.
I had a feeling, I just didn't want to go, you're wrong.
I could have sworn I heard you say the 9th, but that's okay.
I think, yeah. And I was asked to try to do it at a cadence on a certain day of the month. So I planned the whole 12 months out.
No problem.
Except
Great.
for July, where I
Yep.
hopefully will be sipping wine in Italy. So
I was
Take
doing
us with you.
last
Take us.
June.
Is that a road trip for the Atlanta Alumni Board?
It is the Sean and Gina Riley road trip that we were planning last year, and I couldn't because I was writing the book. So
yeah.
Well, we should talk later about that, because we just did that with the whole family last June.
oh, I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
Oh, you're going to do it this July, so it's good. All right.
Yeah,
Take care, everybody.
Yep. Yeah. Hey
Bye,
guys,
everyone.
thank you
We'll
so
see
much.
you.
Very well
We'll
done, Gina. You are a fresh breath of air. Thank you for bringing your energy and
Thank you.
enthusiasm to our community.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us. We'll see you on February 12th, and tell your friends, we're here to help.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.